So
okay, Coelho Vineyard.
Well, I think we want to start about talking about kind of the difference between 16 and 17, right? So for me, kind of like broad brushstroke, they're very similar, but I would say 17 was a touch cooler. 16, we had warm days, warm nights. It never really cooled down per se,
right?
Like 17. 17, you know, we had beautiful 90-degree days, kind of 60, 50-degree nights, whereas like in 16 you had warm nights, like it never cooled below 70, 75 degrees. So, you know, 16 warmer per Oregon standards.
In 16 we got through harvest pretty well, rain-free. It was really nice. Where September came in 17 and gave us a little bit of showers and
about an inch,
and then kind of really never did get back to warming up. I mean, it just kind of stayed cool, but
70s, 50s at night, so kind of struggle ripening in the 70s.
And then on top of that, we've been kind of slowly changing our vineyard at the Coelho Vineyard site. We were originally on the canopy, which is the flop system. And when I'm saying flop or VSP, I'm referring to the style of the canopy that the grapes are grown on. So we've taken from single curtain or flop, which is a high wire where the canes just fall to the ground.
Well, here, I'll stop you. So high wire, so in VSP, the first wire we call the fruiting wire is about 24 to 30 inches off the ground, whereas high wire flop 54 is 54. So very high up.
So the canopy actually hangs down like a curtain, and it covers all the way to the ground. You don't get as much airflow underneath the canopy because it's covering like a curtain.
Yeah.
So we've slowed, and the fruit's way up high.
The guys like to pick it because it's super
it's easy to pick for sure. But I mean, as far as canopy management and cutting, and we found out at Coelho site when Chris came on board that we had a little vegetative profiles in the Coelho site, and we determined it was just from too much vegetation. So we switched
too many leaves,
but we've switched the canopy to VSP where we can control that canopy much easier. We have a mechanical hedger that we can go through there and chop the canes so they're all the same height. Where the flop system, they hang down, they're harder to trim. Some of the canes will run along the wire, you might not even trim any of it. So this has been a progression since, when did we start doing it?
2000.
Well, no, we planted it in 2002. But we moved into VSP since, I think, 16, once we started taking the Zaytune and the Delfina. Just make consistency with all the vineyards. But we're doing it slowly.
So how many rows do you have in Coelho? It's 30 acres.
It's 256 rows.
Yeah, so every year we're doing about 10 rows, converting it from the flop to VSP.
10 of Pomard and 10 of 777.
So 20 rows a year. So, it's a long-term project.
And you lose production when you come in and change that system too. So we got to be careful and just move slowly.
Yeah. And also too, I think what we found from my start in 16 to August 12th, 2021, we found that there's two clones in Coelho, 777 and Pomard.
Correct.
And I think we've talked about finding a little more kind of clonal diversity, maybe taking out a little 777 and playing with maybe some 115, because we've had that at Delfina now since 2016.
667.
Yeah, 667. Maybe putting 10, 20 rows out of the 250 and that, just to kind of round out Coelho a little more, kind of maybe give it a little more color, because Coelho is kind of that classic Oregon, very light color. And for me, like I feel Coelho Vineyard is very classic Pinot Noir color. Like you should be able to see through it with your hand, and kind of that kind of lighter red, kind of getting to that bricky color. I mean, that's Pinot Noir, very classic example. But I think to kind of build Coelho up a little bit, just a little 6, 6, 7. They're not very much, maybe 2-3%, 5% maybe tops, but I think
when Chris talks about that, we don't have any more room to plant it, so we actually do some grafting. We cut it off, make a slice in the trunk, add a stick on there, tape it all up, and it's a grafting. There's a little bit involved in it, but you lose about 2 years.
But it's the time to do it when you're going from 54 inches down to 36, and you have to make that big cut. You can add that new clonal material, and then you've essentially grafted it. You know, but it's a very long term. It's like
That vineyard,
it's the 5-year
yeah,
plan.
almost 20 years old now, that vineyard,
Yeah.
so it's well
Yeah.
established, and trunk size is beautiful on them.
Yeah, it's
Plenty of life still left in that
Oh,
vineyard
yeah.
to even do
Oh, yeah.
that.
Yeah. And from what I learned from my mentors, you know, you really don't know the kind of like what the vineyard will give you until it's 25 years old. So we're getting there, and you know, I think what we've learned from 16 to 21, I
I
think.
didn't know what I was doing until I was 25 either.
But you know, every year's a learning experience. I mean, Mother Nature keeps throwing us curveballs. You know, 20 we had fire. You know, 19 was warm, 18 was warm, 17 was warm with a cooler, fall. So I think, if you just kind of follow the textbook of growing Pinot Noir, I think you're going to get wrecked moving forward. So,
For sure.
every year we learn something new. If it's manipulating the leaves in the canopy, taking out laterals, reducing the canopy.
Oh, it's helped tremendously.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
every year we try to learn something, and I think Coelho Vineyards, since it's your biggest holding, is kind of, we always try to keep 2 or 3 blocks to kind of experiment with, and we can ferment those separately and really see, what.
So blocks,
our
again,
decisions
when
is
Chris
there.
says blocks, we're referring to certain sections of the vineyard. So.
Yeah. But a block's really the 10-acre piece of land, right?
No, section.
Section.
Section 640 acres. And an acre is 43,560 square feet. More on Coelho Vineyard, the crew that we have that takes care of all 3 vineyards
Yeah.
is Roberto and his crew. We keep them busy all year long. They're our primary crew. They take it upon themselves, like they have ownership in it, as well as the wines. So they're not only involved in the growing of the grapes, the management of the grapes, the nurturing of them. They've also come down and take care and understand what we do in the winery.
Yeah.
It gives them a better idea and appreciation for what we do and what they do to make the wines. That we
And they
make.
think I appreciate too when I talk crazy, like, Roberto, I want you to take the first 3 leaves off
gets
this VSP road, and he looks at me like I'm crazy. But when he can do that, then we can bring it in here and make the wine. You can taste the difference between 3 leaves, no leaves,
Right.
the traditional style. And he goes, "Oh, this is a lot better." And I go, "That's why I asked you to do it."
Yeah.
And then they take ownership, and then it's like, we need to make wine like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would say our crew, our tasting room staff, we try to teach them
Oh, yeah.
everything we do and more of why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just doing it because it's cool and it's trendy. It's an end product in this glass, because when I first asked to say we only need to take the first 3 leaves off, to open up the canopy a little bit, they're like, "Oh no, this guy." And then when you can actually taste it and why we're doing it, I think that is what differentiates Coelho Winery. Sometimes you have like a crew that comes in and they just do their work. You're missing like the little details of these certain things.
Well, they know each plant.
Yeah.
I mean, they really do. I mean,
And they do.
I could compare it. My uncles had a dairy, and they know them up in 500 cows. They know each cow almost by name.
Exactly.
And I think the same thing with the vineyard crew. They get out there and to go through that vineyard one time a year, they probably pass by that plant
30, 40 times a year.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was going to say 24 times,
Yeah.
but yeah.
But I think now that we've been here, I've been here since 16, now 5 years later. So when I can go to the crew and be like, "Hey, Roberto and Dave, like, what if we tried this in this particular block?" And they would understand what we're trying to achieve here in the glass.
But going back with the people going out there and nurturing those plants, I mean, you never really hear about that. There were, those people see those plants, 20, 30 times a year.
Yeah.
And they're looking at, how are we going to train this, because you got growth coming out of the plant. Do we need to take this off, or are we going to save this one for next year because this one's looking weak? I mean, they truly take pride and ownership in how that plant, and gives it the most longevity for its life, and the way it's shaped, the way it grows. He does the tractor work, and when he's hedging, he doesn't want something coming out there on the side. I mean, all that's played in there, and I don't think we talk about it in the winery. enough and give the appreciation to the people that work in the vineyard as
Yeah,
well.
because it's all really made out there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
well.
very little we can do here
Well, that's
that
true.
you know the vineyard doesn't already give us to start with. It gives us all the pieces, and we have to make them
Right.
you know what they are. So you
So
know,
that's Coelho
90% of all winemaking is in the vineyard. So
Yeah.
if it's wrong, blame that guy, not this guy.
Mm-hmm.